Okay. So I'm super excited about this. Yeah, Jordan hit us up and was like, hey, I'm going to be gone for 4 weeks. Does anybody want to do a series with the theory time? Yes, Joel, do you have a question?
I would like to do a series.
Oh, right.
No, with you.
Okay, cool. But this one's mine. Okay. And immediately I was inspired to be like, I'm going to do how to circle. Because people ask that question a lot, like what is circling, how to circle, what are the rules, blah, blah, blah. And are almost always disappointed with the answer. And so I decided what would happen if I took my 16 years of teaching experience and I just got into my science brain and like literally tried to answer the question directly. And so this is week 1 of the result of that effort of mine so far. So I'm going to teach you how to circle. Okay. So I think it's unwise to start with anything but what is circling? Oh, I should scroll it in just a tad. There we go. This is just a Google Doc that I'm scrolling. Okay. So this is the definition I came up with on my hike today. So, evolving interactive mindfulness. So, just to be clear, this word, mindfulness, I didn't understand until after I had taken an 8-week course to teach me what it was. So, you could replace that word with meditation, presence, awareness, interactive, right? Sometimes we say interpersonal, but I actually wanted to say interactive because I circle alone sometimes, and I am interacting with myself, but I guess it's like interpersonal, but it's just like, no, just don't even. And evolving is like part of like the newest part of my personal understanding that I'm really into right now, which is that like in the moment in each person and the practice itself is like constantly like looking for feedback to update itself toward something better. And also, when fully practiced, circling tends to evolve the person practicing it. So that is why I chose this definition today. I don't want to blow straight ahead. Okay. So a lot of times people are like, what are the rules? And so I spent all week thinking like, okay, like, is there anything that I can be like, yeah, this is definitely like a rule of circling? And I came up with one. Be you. I'm unaware of a way that you can't be you. So, as far as I know, you can't break the rules. Yeah. I have like I think I almost called it nervous, but this is excitement. Like I feel like a really yummy feeling in my chest. It's fun to show y'all my like teacher. I like her a lot. Darren knows her. Okay. Any questions? It's talking to me. I don't want that thing bopping up all day. Oh, this is not gonna work out. Whatever, it might bop up a little bit. We'll deal with it. Okay. Great. It's just me? Awesome. Metaphor. Okay. All right. So then, see, we're just blowing through it. This is so great. So sometimes people are like, what's allowed, right? They want to do something and they look at me or somebody else and they're like, is this allowed? Am I allowed to blah, blah, blah? Am I allowed to blah, blah, blah? Right? Okay, so, again, I spent all week, like, what is allowed at circling? Legal things.
Mostly.
Well, okay. At Austin Circling Studio, right? Because as like a business entity, we don't want to be breaking the law, right? But in your own personal circling experiences at your home or in your car, like if you're speeding while you're circling, like that's on you. That's still circling. That's allowed in circling, right? But then that's your personal relationship with the law, right? But I'm giving this speech, this talk at Austin Circling Studio. So we're going to obey the laws of the nation and the state and the city. So what's not allowed at circling is illegal things. Yeah, at Austin Circling Studio. I may or may not have done illegal things while circling in my own personal life, not at Austin Circling Studio, and that still counted as circling. Cool. Am I clearing some things up? Yeah, question, yeah.
Can we go back to BU?
Yeah. Yep. What you got?
So, I've recently been spending a lot of time with this question, what is circling? And I listened to many hours of Alan Watts to figure out the answer. And the thing that feels the most tricky to communicate, right? I basically distilled it down to what you've distilled it to so far. But it feels tricky to me to communicate the BU part, right? It's like everything that I can give them is a concept that they're going to get bogged down on, and they're going to project that concept onto the art, which is not conceptual. So
yes, this is where I think my experience teaching voice helps me with this, because I can't know what that person's instrument looks like. So all I can do is try to midwife out their voice. It's the same thing with circling. It's like, I can't tell you how your mindfulness occurs, but I can kind of invite forth the common things, and you might have some exceptions.
is that just kind of context that you would give?
I'm hoping to directly address that during this 4-week series. I've got some stuff.
Yeah, looking forward.
Okay. Oh my god, I'm enjoying this so much. This is like my fullest expression of an Annabeth, I think, right now. Okay. What are we up to next? Game show! I made a game show for us. And it's called Good Circling or Bad Circling. Right? So we know the rules. There's one rule, be you, which you can't not be you, so you can't break the rules. We know, like, legal things are allowed, right? But there's obviously good circling and bad circling. Like, I think we've all been able to tell that. But, like, what's the difference? So, in today's episode of the game show, I'm going to give you a scenario, and you're going to tell me, is it good circling or bad circling? You ready for this? You ready? You ready? Oh my god. Okay. Sam shares something really scary and vulnerable. She is crying. There is silence for a long time. Eventually, Bob says, I don't care. So you think Bob is good circling?
Good circling.
Okay. What else? All right, let's do hands up. Hands up if you think that was good circling. Bob was doing good circling. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, who thinks that's bad circling? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who does not know?
Can we have a middle
1, 2,
range?
3, 4,
Like
5. What are you wanting? Like, what's...
I think Bob can be circling better. Like, Bob can be being him more,
better.
in like a more
That's
exposed
true.
way.
Yeah, it could be.
But that he's not like out of bounds.
Well, it doesn't say best circling, so yeah.
Okay, I'm good circling.
You're with good circling?
If we have room for better circling, I'm with good circling.
All right, there is a correct answer to this. Do you want to know what it is?
Yeah.
The correct answer is, we don't know yet.
Yes.
Because we don't yet know why Bob did it. That's why. Okay. So let's dive into that. All right. So let's see. Scenario 1. Bob was doing what he thought he was supposed to do. Nobody at Circling ever said normal things. Everybody always said mean things or things he didn't understand. So he did it too.
Well, the sweet circle's like I circle.
I just changed Ray's name to Bob. All right, so in this circumstance, was this good circling or bad circling?
Bad.
Bad?
Not circling.
Because he wasn't being.
I'm going to say it's not circling. I'm going to agree with that. Like, it is a completely understandable choice for Bob to make. It's a very reasonable thing. Like, circling looks weird AF, right? Like, it does. And so, like, yeah, you're just going to be like, is it this thing? Right? So that's, like, totally understandable. And it's like, yeah, it's not great circling. It's a different thing. But that's okay. It's going to happen. That's fine. All right, scenario 2. Look how I'm giving clarity and answers and shit. Okay. Bob knew he cared about Sam, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't feel any care for her right now. He didn't know why. Even though it seemed like something he wasn't supposed to do, something deep in his belly felt calm at the thought of speaking the truth, and he decided to trust that.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, this is some pretty great circling right there. Right? Right? It looks mean, right? Because Bob is like, I don't care. Right? And she's all hurting. But he's in this deeper exploration. Yeah. All right. Scenario 3. Bob thought Sam... What?
About
Yeah.
that,
Toots, let's do it. Yeah.
doesn't say if he voiced anything, so maybe he was looking
Well,
at...
up in the original scenario, he said,
Okay,
I don't
so-
care.
Okay, so
But
he
these are
did
different motivations.
indeed say...
These are the different experiences of Bob before he said, I don't care.
so it does say, I don't care.
Yeah,
And all
the
of
actual
that.
like videotapable scenario originally stays the same. These are like the possibilities of the unseen
Okay.
situations going on. Yeah, great question. Yes. Okay, scenario 3. Bob thought Sam was trapped in an old wound and wanted to help her heal. He said the thing he thought she was most afraid of so she'd have a breakthrough.
Evil circling.
So Dennard literally created a practice called evil circling, and this is pretty much the premise. Yeah, it's true. Anybody else have an answer for that one? Good circling, bad circling?
Sounds like unsolicited advice.
I would call this what?
Oh, not here, but I've done things like that in personal relationships and friendships, and it's always been a bad idea.
Yeah, I think yes. In general in life, this method tends not to work out very well because it assumes that Bob knows better than Sam what Sam needs right now. And yeah, this is terrible circling. This is bad circling. Yeah? Cool. Alright. I love just giving like just answers, just saying. Yeah, I have more. I have more.
Oh yeah.
4. Bob was filled with admiration for Sam. He couldn't find any words that were as big as his love for her, so he wasn't speaking. During the silence, he saw her whisper, "That was stupid." A fierce protective energy in him wanted to shield her from that. He said, "I don't care," in response to, "That was stupid." Good circling or bad circling?
Good question. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Why not?
Bob's not showing up all the way yet, so there's still too much that we can't see in between Bob and Sam actually like connecting.
I agree. Like if after this, if he's gonna be willing to do like commitment to connection, like if he's gonna be willing to like kind of like navigate this confusing space with her and like own his experience, like, oh, I felt protective of you, like all that stuff, that could be some pretty great circling. Yeah. But if he's like, I get to protect you, then that's a little bit similar to the other one of like, I'm gonna help you have your breakthrough. Like assuming she can't protect herself.
Or even
Yeah.
the first one.
Say more.
He said hyperprotective behavior modeled his whole life, and he thinks that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, so like doing like what you're like supposed to do. Yeah. We ready to move on? We have 2 more. Okay. 5. Bob had seen other people say controversial things at circling, and he wanted to try it too.
Good circling.
I kind of like that one.
It's sort of like the first one. It's like, oh, I think this is what. Well, but it's going from what he likes. He's maybe being in his genuine desire.
It's understandable, and it's probably unwise. Right? Like maybe find a different moment to like fulfill that desire. Or again, if you're willing to stay commitment to connection, if you're willing to be with the impact of that on Sam, right? So this one's a gray area. It's
I
not.
think if it's true, like you don't care and you want to bring this, then like go for it. Again, if you're willing to stay in
If you're willing to
connection
stay
and like
with.
foresee the impact. I think that's a big part. Like not hurting controversial things. It's like you don't actually want to hurt someone's feelings when they're already crying, and like this is a really good place to like do that. In a way.
It's tricky because if you don't care about what she's saying, do you care about staying with the impact? Right? Maybe you do. Maybe you're like, I actually said this to Monty one time. I was like, I definitely know that I care about you, but I don't care about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Bob could say it that way, the way that I say it, because I say it the best way. So, I'm the best circler. That's why I'm teaching this.
Oh.
I you might throw this in as another option out, but what if it's a situation where I'm like, man, I have a hard time caring about you, and I definitely don't care about what you're talking about right now. Like, do I keep that to myself?
I mean, again, that's an option. And that way, I mean, it's got a bite to it, and if you're willing that there might be some bite back. I mean, oh, you just broke it.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, your necklace might bite back.
See, you bite
Karma's telling you no right now. Karma's saying, Dara, no, don't do it that way.
I would never even do that.
All right, last one of this particular game show. Good circling, bad circling. Panic was skyrocketing in Bob because something really intense had happened and now nobody was saying anything. He desperately needed to do whatever it took to break the tension. By the time he spoke, he was so flooded with intensity he wasn't even aware of what he was saying.
I would say he's not circling, he's just kind of reacting at that point.
Well, it's I think still too early to tell what happens after this. If he notices that he's flooded in intensity and then brings that, good circling. If he notices and then tries to suppress it, maybe, or other things, not so good. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I would say if as this interaction continues, if he's unable to like see the amount of like flooding he's in, then like circling is not the wisest modality for him to be in at this particular moment. Like he maybe needs like something like more actual therapy based to kind of help him navigate that space, because if that's kind of where you're at, circling is just going to trigger you. But if you're already at the space where like you kind of can catch that you're kind of getting triggered or starting to get flooded, and you're willing to kind of like navigate that space, then circling, especially surrendered leadership, can be something you can navigate. Yeah.
something about this that seems tricky is that if I'm on the border or something, if I were new and I'm learning how to circle and I'm seeing that, I'm thinking, I feel stuck and I don't know what to do. I might be tempted to suppress it rather than name something. And so it's interesting to notice that. There's something like, I wouldn't say that's good circling, but I wouldn't say it's bad circling either. It's sort of feeling out, right? It's
right.
Yeah.
I actually agree with you so if we take away that last part of the sentence, like he was so flooded that he wasn't aware of what he was saying, if he's just a step back from that and he's just speaking to kind of send up a flare, but ideally the words would be something like, I need help right now. Right? As opposed to kind of sending something towards Sam. Yeah. Okay. We did great at round 1 of the game show. Ooh. Good circling or bad circling. Okay. Did you have
Getting to this too, but I'm finding this really helpful too to help identifying other people, what angle they're coming from. Right? So and myself also, but
right.
it's really helpful to think about other people I've seen do these things in circling, and it gives me a little bit more empathy towards them.
Right. Well, yeah,
slow down.
It's interesting to imagine Sam's position because she's already she's in some intense emotion, and Bob just did something that could be kind of triggering for her, and then can she kind of open her mind to the possibility okay, I don't know why he said that. Can I still be with my experience right now and also be open to finding out where that came from? That's amazing circling. That's that's the good shit. Okay. I'm super excited. I'm loving this. Okay. So I started coming up with a list of good circling things that don't happen in bad circling. It was really hard to know quite how to name this list. But basically I was just okay, we don't give rules here of what you can do and what you can't do. And we give these guiding principles and stuff like that, but it's still just kind of for this series with my teacher, I'm how much clarity can I bring? How specific can I be? How straightforward can I be? So, I've so far got a list of about 36 things.
That's it?
There's way more. This is just where my list is right now. And today I prepared 6 of them that we're going to just kind of address. All right.
Pencils ready.
Feeling my feelings without believing their conclusions. Does that make sense? Does that need more explanation?
Do you have a go-to example?
I heard I feel ashamed, that doesn't mean I necessarily did something wrong.
That's an excellent example. That's an excellent example. And this may be mostly personal to me, but I kind of grew up developing this habit of if I have a feeling, first I have to decide whether that feeling is valid or not. Because if it's not valid, my mom used to teach me, and I don't think this is what she meant when she would say this stuff, but she's there's a difference when somebody broke your toe, stepped on your toe and broke it, and they meant to, versus somebody accidentally stepped on your toe and broke it. And in my mind, I interpreted that to, I don't get to feel hurt if they didn't mean to step on my toe. And so this is saying I totally get to feel the pain of my broken toe. I totally get to just cry and even be angry at the person. And my pain might be they were an asshole, they stepped on my toe on purpose, but I can feel the pain without buying into its conclusion. In fact, kind of my most recent practice is kind of telling my brain hey, listen, I'm gonna hang out with you later. Right now I'm gonna just feel the feelings And then once I'm like not so intense in the feelings, like I'll come like see what you have to say, and we'll figure it out. But we'll like bring in some like facts. We'll ask the other person like what's up before we like come to conclusions. Is that kind of making some sense? Okay. Next. Okay. So I love this one. Assuming that I misunderstood your words by at least 20%. And I'll tell you exactly where this came from for me. Some of you might have already heard me talk about this, but this summer when I was at the International Circling Festival in Amsterdam, I noticed that for a large number of the people there, English was not their first language, even though they were excellent at English. And then even for the people for whom English was their first language, we came from very different areas of the world. So we had different colloquialisms. We had different ways of using words. And I noticed that we circled differently because we assumed that we were probably miscommunicating with our words by at least about 20%. And the word that kind of came for me with this was grace. Like a grace period, or like it just felt like the interaction just has like some space in it, some grace. Whereas I noticed, especially here in Austin, it's relatively common for us to be like entirely certain that we are completely correct, that we understand what that person just said and what they meant. And then we get to be reactive because we definitely understood. And things tend to go a lot faster when people think they understood. And in Europe, I think there's other reasons for this too, but a lot of circles went a lot slower.
Wow.
Just in like the pace of the speech, but also like in how long it took to kind of like people would kind of always check back in and be like, did I understand this? Before moving on. Yay. I'm feeling a thing in the room where it's like, I wasn't expecting this, but like in one of my iterations of like what to do tonight, I was gonna like just try to like point us directly at the way that, I don't know if y'all are feeling it, but the way I'm feeling right now, where there is some kind of stillness like in this sense realm in the room. But it's like, doesn't feel like boredom, it feels like aliveness. And so I wasn't expecting, oh, we have it anyway. I didn't do that whole thing. We just have it. Okay. 3. When I want someone or something else to be different, I do it first. I call this one me first. Does this make sense? Yeah. So it's especially, I use this whenever I kind of want to give advice. Yeah. My favorite time was in connection with you, Ray, where, I learned this massive thing about myself. I wanted to change you, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it in me. And then it was just like this beautiful experience. And then I shared what was happening for me. I'm like, okay, I just did this whole thing, and here's what's happening now. I reported back about it. Yeah. But that is a common thing that happens here at the studio, especially, is I want this to be different. Or people not even kind of realizing that what they're saying is trying to change the way the other person is being. And almost always, if you're wanting something to change, it's because you're really uncomfortable with the way it is.
What's an example?
An example is last night I was circling with my housemates. I live in a co-op and I have 19 housemates. And so I led a circle with them last night, and
Illegal or illegal? No, I'm just kidding. Just joking.
nothing illegal happened at that circle.
The circling police didn't show up, so.
The circling police.
Aren't they out of town?
They're out of town right now. Yeah, and I pretty early on, I just had this burst of like deep disappointment with how I was facilitating it. And I just desperately wished I had done it differently. And I was crying. Some of my housemates were like, they were saying these beautiful things, and it was clear that it was to make me feel better, because their love for me was like, it's hard for me to see you sad, and I want you to feel better, so I'm going to say this nice thing.
Like a compliment, or what do you mean by nice?
Well, yeah. One of them was like, I just really appreciate you, and some of them were like, you're doing a really great job, and all of that is lovely, and it has this really subtle way of like telling this sadness, like, please go away now. Please be, are you done yet? Are you done yet? And well, I feel like a little bit of the ache in me still. I think one of the practices of circling is to like, when, like, for example, when the sad comes, like, let it have as much time as it needs to just feel it. And in my mind, I could agree with them. Like, yeah, I don't actually think I just fucked everything up. Like, I think I did fine. And so, like, I wasn't believing the conclusion. Like, I fucked it up. But I still had the sad. And so I just told them, like, it's okay if there's laughter and if there's fun stuff, like, and I need to just feel this sadness all the way through right now. Because for me, when I don't feel it now, I eat it later. So I just keep practicing feeling it now.
That's a really interesting point, like, going back to the second point of like not fully understanding. Like, you might say something like, oh, I really want it to be different now. But it's like, do you? Or are you just like reporting on the part of you that's saying that, but you are actually like okay with it? So it's sometimes tricky depending on
that's
who
where
the person is, like what are they actually saying? Like, I don't know, it's so weird, like they're owning it, but then it's not really them. I don't know.
That's where like the circling way of owning your experience, of just like reporting, like, I'm really uncomfortable with the way this is right now, gets pretty easily confused with like currently colloquially, like it's considered like the polite way to ask for something to be different, to just kind of say that you're uncomfortable with the way it is. And that like kind of counts as an ask for it to change. And so we find this a lot with kind of newer circles where they're like, I really want this to be different right now. But then we people who maybe spend a little bit too much time only around circlers are like, oh, okay. And we just thought they were just like owning their experience. And then they're like, why didn't you change when I asked you to change? And I'm like, oh, I didn't hear you say, will you change? I didn't hear those literal words. So I didn't actually consider it. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's like they could say like, I'm uncomfortable, and you're like, how are you with that? And they're like, I'm totally comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
Yeah, I'm totally willing to be with the fact that I'm wanting things to change right now. Yeah.
For me, like, something that falls in this camp, I'm curious what your feedback on, is like when people say I'm bored.
Yeah.
That one falls in this realm of like do something. then?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's where we could start to play the game good circling, bad circling, where it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about of like, if they're saying bored from this like, I'm bored, therefore something should change, right? That's not going to necessarily play out very successfully for that person at a circle, right? Because that's not kind of how we roll. They can do it, it's just like not going to play out very well, and that's not good circling. Yeah, but if somebody's just like admitting I'm bored, if they're just owning their experience and they don't actually expect anything to happen from that, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly good circling. Yeah. And it feels a little different to hear it. And that gets to be a little bit of sketchy ground, right? Because like that's where we need to go back to like assume I'm at least 20% missing you, right? If I'm like, I'm pretty certain you're just owning your experience, right? But like, don't convince myself that I'm 100% right about how I just interpreted you, right? Have the space for reality to be a little bit different than it seems. Yeah?
I do have a question. I'm not
Yeah?
exactly sure what it is. It's so if someone, for example, says I'm bored, and they're, I don't really know the terminology.
It's fine.
Very new, but
Yeah.
if you're one of the witnessers,
Yeah.
you say I'm bored, would they elaborate on it, or just kind of be with it themselves to reflect?
I don't know. I mean, it goes a lot of ways. Sometimes somebody says I'm bored and nobody responds and other things happen next. Sometimes somebody says I'm bored and then someone else in the circle is like, what's that like? Sometimes somebody says I'm bored and then I wouldn't necessarily call this good circling. Again, yeah, we could play the game good circling, bad circling with if somebody were to say, why are you bored?
The last time I said I was bored in a circle, it made a couple people angry, and the topic did change. So.
But you were no longer bored.
Yeah, and it became interesting.
I was the one that's mad.
Was that you getting what you wanted? The way it played out?
I don't know. I guess I did want it to change. I was just trying to bring what was alive in me because I was uncomfortable with it. I realized afterwards maybe it was like, I think I said I'm uncomfortable. Like my boredness is making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems in that like we're going back to the evolving part.
Say more.
It's hearing you say that like after you said I'm bored, there was some kind of introspective process. Like I'm uncomfortable. I'm like trying to not be uncomfortable and trying to shift things. It's like you were in your personal evolution, and the circle was in its personal evolution. So like, is good circling that progresses evolution?
I'd say so. Yeah.
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 Opens up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4. Utilizing discernment in my choices. Oh my god. I have a Venn diagram for this. I'm so excited. Okay. So, this is my Venn diagram for discernment, which is like my new favorite thing because, well, I could talk for a really long time about what. Almost everything that I put, just even on today, I'm like, every single thing, every sentence, whatever, I'm like, I could do a whole hour on that. I could do a whole weekend retreat on that. Okay, here's my Venn diagram. This circle is, wish I'd drawn it differently, that's all right. I'm going to call it raw honesty. Okay, that was good. I did good. All right. This circle.
Self-commentary.
It could be an equal size. It's pretty awkward from here, but we'll make it work. I'm gonna call this basic human care. Alright? I personally tend to overdo it on this one. Alright.
Smart.
This circle is the deepest wisdom I can access. Right here is discernment. Right? So I tend to overdo it on this one, basic human care. I tend to be scared shitless of raw honesty. I'm not at all scared of wisdom, but it takes me a long time to access a depth of wisdom that makes me willing to bring my honesty. That's where I'm at with this Venn diagram currently. And I bet you can kind of maybe get a sense of where you're at with it right now.
How would you differentiate raw honesty from like deep wisdom?
I would say
example.
Raw honesty is interesting because it might not include facts. But wisdom should be taking reality fully into account. Right? So my emotions do not give a fuck what reality is. But they're true, right? It's true that that's what I'm experiencing, right? But it might not be factual. Yeah, that's a great question. Any others?
So the basic human care, you mean empathy, basically. Care could be empathy, or is it different?
Sure, could be empathy.
Or is it more than
non-harming? Like I'm not actively trying to harm you with
non-harming.
the thing I'm saying.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, so one of the reasons I use this wording is because the two kind of flawed versions that sometimes play out with this are believing that I don't care, right? Just because I can't feel it right now, I assume that I don't actually care, right? But like, if you wouldn't literally like physically kill them right now, you care that they exist. You have basic human care for them. The other like pole of the mishap here tends to be what I call caretaking. A lot of people call it this. And that, there's a lot of ways we could define that, but right now I would mostly define it as like the thing that I'm calling care is actually my intense discomfort with your pain. So I'm actually taking care of me in my showing care to you. Also, it can be a habitual thing of taking from the other person their opportunity to care for themselves. So it's like, they can care for themselves right now, but it's gonna be hard. They're gonna struggle. And it's hard to just sit here and be like, I love you, man. I'm gonna be right by your side while you struggle with caring for yourself. And I'm not gonna perpetuate more pain while that's happening. I care, right? But I'm also not gonna try to fix it for you because I believe you got this.
That was good.
Oh, good. Thanks, Jeff. I thought it was good too. Okay, so discernment. We pretty good? We pretty good with discernment? Yeah. So if I'm utilizing discernment in my choices, that also means I'm making choices while I'm circling. I'm aware that I'm making choices, that I'm not just reacting purely. Yeah.
Which is raw honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, caretaking could be from a reactive place. Yeah, totally.
I
I'm enjoying mapping Bob's responses to that diagram.
Bob, yeah. Oh my God, I think we'll have time. We could go back and do that. That's a pretty great idea. Okay. All right, we got 2 more. Always upgrading my armor. Yeah. So here's a common thing I hear from newbies to circling. When I'm like, hey, what do you think circling is? And they're like, it's where I go be vulnerable. And I'm like, And basically, like, what I want to add is boundaries. You are practicing your boundaries. And that is one way that a person can care for themselves, is to have really high quality boundaries going on. So, one of the ways that people boundary, right, is kind of, sometimes people call it a wall. I feel a wall going up in me, right? I like thinking of it as armor, because it kind of comes on and off, right? Like when you're home alone or with your best friend or your partner or something, like you don't necessarily feel armored. And then there are certain, like, especially if you feel it like where there's a place, like some people feel it when they're going to work, where like during the car ride, they can kind of feel themselves like armoring up. Like, but that old school armor, like, and it's like heavy and like you kind of can't like wield yourself in it, right? And so those are kind of the 2 extremes of like, oh, I get to be vulnerable here and like not just take all my walls down. I did that in my early days of circling, where I did a birthday circle where I like, my metaphor is that I just like took a sledgehammer to all my walls, and then the following weekend I literally like had to just have a blanket over me. I felt like I didn't have skin emotionally. I just like had this blanket. Like I just realized like, oh, if you don't have like walls in your house, then the weather just fucks you up all the time. Like it's really important to have some walls and some boundaries. But you want, so we can constantly upgrade it. And my favorite version of armor right now is the Black Panther armor, where his sister's like this freak genius, right? She's not a freak, I mean just how smart she is. And her like full-time job is not developing weapons for him. It's like developing this like amazing armor. And like she gives him this bodysuit that when he gets hit, it gives him that exact amount of energy that he can then punch with. Right? That's some stunning armor. Like, but it also like protects him from the impact of the hit. It like absorbs it into the suit and gives it back to him. Like, that's some hardcore stuff. Now, that's highly advanced. Like, if we like take that metaphor into like interpersonal interactions, easier said than done, right? Which is why in circling we're like constantly upgrading. Like, you know, my favorite thing to do in circling when somebody like says they've got a wall up or a boundary, I just imagine like if this is their wall, I just imagine like, hey, I'm just like sitting at their wall, leaning up against it, like kind of like talking through the wall, like, what's going on? Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I'm like, or like sometimes I really love like if there's like a sentinel on duty, like, hey, can I talk to him? Like, and I'm not trying to convince him to go off duty. I'm just like, dude, what are you defending? Like, it's super special, right? Like, I'm so glad that you're defending this. How can I help you? Like, this is such great news that this special thing is being protected. I'm so glad you're here.
How would you upgrade it during circling? What does that mean?
Yeah, the only person who can upgrade it is the armor haver.
But I mean, like,
yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
Like, what are you referring to, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to answer that, but I just noticed, like, I wonder, like, all of the, like, what to do's in circling are, like, personal use only, right? None of it is something you can be having someone else do, even though right now I'm telling you what to do. Right? But I'm being the teacher right now. That's our premise right now. We're not circling right now. I'm teaching it right now. Okay. Will you ask it again so I can reword it in my brain?
How would you define upgrading your army during circling? What does that mean?
Yeah.
You're
How do I
saying that
upgrade my
good
armor?
circling is always upgrading my armor. What is that?
Yeah. I'll tell, like, yeah, so, like, for me, initially I was, like, trying to just tear down my armor, and then I experienced the flaws of that method, so I stopped using that method. That's an upgrade. Then, one of the things I've been doing more recently, it's been very odd for me, is like letting myself over armor sometimes. Especially when I'm in a circumstance where I can tell from like 100 miles away, like, this person's is about to touch my, like, some of my childhood wounds. And so I'm going to be feeling some feelings in connection with this person that don't have to do with this person right now. Lately, I've been letting myself, like, over armor. Like, not even look at them, like, really just, like, put myself in, like, this, like, iron dome. And see how that feels. And then, like, I do this thing where, like, I'll, like, have a radio wave so I can hear everybody. But I'm, like, I'm here, I'm safe, you know? And then, like, oh, there's one person I'm willing to make eye contact with. So that kind of feels like my little, like, hole under the walls. I can, like, peek out and then go back. So you just kind of, like, you try something, you see how it goes, and then, like, this is my scientist, you, like, gather data, and then utilize it when you try the next thing. Does that kind of make sense?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like, something that's been really impactful for me, like, upgrading my armor has been the ability to check my assumptions with other people. So being able to say, like, is that really how you felt this happened? Or, like, is my experience that I think you're having, like, true for you? It's allowed me to, like, let go of a lot of armor in a way and, like, model into something, like, way lighter. Like, I'm not taking things personally all the time that other people are doing. It's like I can just, like, drop it. Finally, it's not, like, carry around all this shit. Yeah, and like my quality of life. That's not great.
Kind of something similar around, like, and not taking things personally. Like, you don't need the armor if it's not flying at you.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's kind of a
gosh.
way to upgrade your armor.
I rewatched The Matrix last night. Yeah, I hadn't seen it in like 2 years. I'm like, no wonder this is on the SAS curriculum. Oh my god. But yeah, it's kind of like the difference between like the bullets hitting you and killing you versus like the bullets hitting you and then knowing that you didn't die, even though you can see that you're full of bullets, and then being able to like stop the bullet and look at it. Right? When something's coming to trigger me, can I stop it and just look at it? And then can I choose to drop it on the floor and not actually even let it touch me? That's the super duper advanced. Can't say that I'm quite there yet. That's why I'm still working on my armor, which is good to have any old way. Yeah. All right. Number 6. I'm loving this. Holding multiple perspectives in my awareness.
That's a good one.
Right? So, a good way to explain that one is like, that is what Sam, back in our original game show, that's what Sam would have to do to find out whether Bob was doing good circling or bad circling. Sam's going to have to hold her experience of like, oh man, I'm feeling really vulnerable right now still. And hey Bob, what is going on for you? And like for me, when I was in my early days of this, it literally in my mind kind of seemed like I had like 2 TV screens. And like I would kind of just have to toggle back and forth between them and kind of compare them. I would say these days it's still kind of like toggling, but less separated for me. Like I can kind of, I can see where they kind of overlap a little bit. Yeah, and then the multiple perspectives, like, I mean, if you're going more than 2, that can get pretty complicated. That is definitely like, if there's like, we call this place a gym for emotional health. That's one of the ones where like, if there's a muscle I feel like I've been kind of doing a lot of reps on and building, I would say it's my perspective holding. Any questions on this one?
Well, I might just flesh it out that like the multiple perspectives can be as simple as like first person, second person, third person, right? So Sam, in the example you gave, it would be like, can Sam still be in her first person experience of being like super triggered and crying and also hold the second person perspective of Bob? And then like as a facilitator, you might hold both of those and a third person while you're interacting with someone of like, how is the group receiving the communication that I'm in right now? And that'd be like the I hope that helps.
Yeah, something I've been trying is like holding multiple polarities, just kind of like perspectives, and then like Ken Wilber says, feel into one polarity and then like feel into the other. Notice one I have a bias towards, and like usually when I feel into both of them enough and like see both sides, I feel like I come up with like a third thing that like includes both and is like more complex. That's been like really fun.
Do you have an example? Just, I mean, I can think of many polarities, but yeah, it would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, give me 2 polarities.
Like
or at least
an
one.
example that you've been working with.
Imagining a time you did that.
You have a time?
No.
This is
That's what you were asking for.
Yeah.
Maybe we're
it's
doing
like
it right now.
in the same neighborhood, but slightly different. It's also really awesome. Like I love that. I do that too. I think I'm mostly saying that because I want my last minute and a half. Yeah. I think one thing I want to kind of just like point out is that when it looks like the facilitator's not doing anything, they're doing a lot of this stuff you can't see. When I'm facilitating, I am like trying on as many perspectives as I can, and like kind of doing kind of how Shane described it of like, and then like see if there's any sense that I can make of it, and then I'm also checking in with my visceral experience, and there's a whole lot of shit that I'm doing when I'm completely silent and sitting there. And I have a recommendation. It's my grand finale for tonight. So if any of you see the words welcome letter and you're like, what does that mean? I printed it out, and we have it by the door. Circling Europe spent a ton of time writing and editing that. And it is absolutely amazing, and every time I read it again, I'm blown away by it. And then the 5 principles I printed out and put on the wall. And obviously you don't have to do anything I tell you to do, because I don't actually have any power over you, but I highly recommend that weekly, that would be amazing, you reread both of those things and see what new things you notice.
Is it possible if you could upload your document somewhere?
My game plan. So I recorded this. Thanks for asking for that. My game plan is to kind of make these little YouTube videos with all this stuff in there with the recording and that's my way of being like, I think I'm a good enough teacher to actually put that stuff out there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, you liked it?
Yeah.
Yay! Thanks for coming.
Yay.
Okay, we're gonna hang out. Oh yeah.
Are those on the website?
The welcome letter and the principles.
Yeah.
Yes, if you scroll. Now the principles, that's interesting. I should put those up on our website. They're definitely on Circling Europe.
Oh. Okay.
If you scroll to the bottom of the Austin Circling Studio website, there's a link that says welcome letter.
Okay.
It'll take you there. Also, I think austincirclingstudios.com/welcome. I think that's the link I made for it. The principles, I need to get that on the website.
There's
some
versions.
They should be on there. There's a lot of versions.
Two versions.
Yeah, we should change them all to Jaren's. I just took this verbatim. I mean, I changed a couple of punctuation things, but I took this verbatim from the 30 Days to Connection. If you go to the website and you sign up for the email, that's just the 30 Days to Connection, and it'll have this in there. Okay, so we're gonna chill out for 15 minutes, and then if you want to stay for 2 hours of Surrender Leadership Circling, we will do that starting at past. Thanks, y'all.